any tips, tricks, principles, hacks that you can share with folks based on your experience?
If you were starting a business today, I'd say just go to marketplaces first. The D2C landscape has changed in the last couple of years and it's not as easy. I mean, even in 2020, I'd say I look back and I think, oh shit, we should have launched in 2015 when the internet was just available for us, right? And we probably would have just like scaled to a much bigger state. No, but the thing is, I think marketplaces today have figured out how to acquire the audience and retain the audience while they come with apparent costs like your margins and things like
Commissions and
that.
what?
Yeah. I feel like compared to D2C and some of the other channels, you will still make money if you focused on marketplaces. And marketplaces will also encourage a business to survive and grow when they know that there is some response or reaction, right? Look at some of brands that Flipkart and Myntra and all of these guys have also launched or co-launched. They'd find this little supplier who is probably having his product and it's doing really well. And they will reach out to him and say, you know what, can we do an exclusive range? Because, we've seen an audience, just price it right and we'll give it that push. So the marketplaces will also do that. So today I would say going the marketplace route is a lot more sort of sensible because it gives you the ready audience and you don't have to really figure it out. Just give them the product at the right price. For us, it was a bit of a journey to get to this point, right? Because we were predominantly D2C. I would say actually pretty much 100% D2C in the first 2 years. We started Amazon sometime late 2021. And Amazon was doing roughly about 40,000-50,000, much like what D2C was a couple of months back, right? And we've now grown that and we've scaled that. We've also understood, how to advertise on the platform, how to keep your product page right, how to keep the brand landing page right. So all the hygiene checks themselves actually just push you to a point. But we always wanted to be on quick commerce and, quick commerce really picked up starting 2021, right? But it was a very difficult journey trying to get in. Somewhere I think Big Basket happened. Although I must say Big Basket was terribly slow to deal with. And in 2022, end of 2022, we started again, of course we were continuously trying to push and get into, the Swiggy, Instamart and the Blinkits of the world. And the Shark Tank episode really helped us close some of those conversations, I'd say. So now, and of course, they're now super open to getting D2C brands, right? So if there are a lot of D2C brands trying to get in, I think now's a great time. So we were able to get in, agree on a good sort of margin and a commission structure. And of course, you also commit to advertising on the platform a little bit. Of course, they also need to make their money. But like I said, they have that captive audience. And that audience is probably opening Instamart twice a week. And therefore, just being visible there, being relevant there, it makes a lot of sense. Because I think today we need to be where the customer is also. And the customer isn't in the store as much, but that's again another channel that we can never ignore.
I think they solve the retention problem for you to an extent, right? Which is that rather than you worrying about how often will this customer come and repeat with me, right? Or rather, you acquiring this customer and having to nurture that person through your monies, right? You have this person who, for example, today,
I'll tell you why. Yeah. Because even if it's mega expensive, I know who this customer is on my website and I know when he's coming back.
Of course. But if I had to, so for example, today we ordered a new batch of stuff, right? I went to Swiggy, Instamart and ordered that.
Correct.
Right? But I don't know, would I go to VS Money and Co. order, wait for a day?
In that case, yeah, absolutely. What you're saying makes absolute sense. Also because, we are not necessarily
It's become the equivalent, the Instamart and all of this has become the equivalent of your neighborhood store, basically, or Kirana.
Yeah. And the fact that they also, like you said, service you guys in about 10-20 minutes, whatever. Exactly. I think it's a great plus point because when you run out of coffee, you know that you can get it here and it's readily available, right? As opposed to on our website, probably takes a day to 10. So we're also trying to fix that problem. But I think today the marketplace ecosystem has evolved to a point where you can launch, build and thrive on these marketplaces. There's also this little risk that you probably have to keep in mind that, there's a lot of consolidation happening. No one's really clear about the future of quick commerce. And therefore, will these players survive and therefore will we have a business? But I guess somewhere some consolidation might happen, and therefore you will still
And
exist.
the fact that you're kind of hinging your destiny on these platforms, right? I mean, Amazon, I think today apparently they've just decided to hike commissions. It might increase by 7-8% apparently, right? Which is a huge chunk.
Yeah, that fear is always sort of going to be there. And therefore, an offline strategy is what I think is always going to be trustworthy, predictable.
Let's talk about that. So at this point, I think you will have to build distribution
Yeah.
offline, right? You got to be in stores and so on. What is a way to do that?
No, so last year, when we started scaling a bit further, even on D2C, we said, let's start sowing the seeds for offline retail. And we decided to do it in Bangalore because we said, although our data said otherwise, right? Our data was Bombay first, but it was closer home, and, we can make a mistake here and, correct those mistakes maybe in the future. So we said we'll do that. We'll launch Bangalore and we'll sort of learn what works for us, because there's also an understanding of what type of stores work for us, which SKUs work for us. So we said, let's go through with that journey and then apply that model in other places. So we're right now in about 220, 230 odd stores. Again, getting to offline retail isn't difficult. I think there's also this big misconception that, retailers will not entertain you and you're not a big brand and all of that. Yes, no store has space today. But look at MK Retail, for example. There was no reason for MK Retail to give us free space in their stores to put up our sort of branding, right? Every wall, every pillar, whatever, in most of their stores, they just gave it to us for free. They said, you know what, new brand, surprisingly you guys are selling. And I'm also seeing, and this was all pre-Shark Tank, by the way.
Okay.
And I'm also seeing some traction which I never imagined, because when we first met them, he looked at ID's numbers and said, are you guys mad? Do you really think you can match this? We said, we think our product is better, keep it and we'll see, because we're also advertising. So then generally there is some brand awareness going on. And, they were kind enough to sort of give us the space. Of course, there is a listing fee and things like that. But I'm saying it's fine to go through with that process a little bit. And we chose to do it with local modern trade, not with national modern trade, because I don't think we have the pockets for that, or neither do we have the sort of production capacity also for that today, right? It's not like we're that big a team either. So we said, let's just go with local modern trade, stores which, are self-service outlets where people go in and, pick up whatever they want. And we chose those outlets and we went in there. So getting into a store is easy if you can find the right guy, right? Obviously you need a sales guy who's always running and talking to stores. But once you know that person, your entry in is pretty easy. And you'll have to set up X number of distributors and therefore figure out which stores you want to service, which geographies do we want to serve. We were very conscious that we will go from the ring and we will go inwards, because we also knew that our audience is a little bit mixed. So we said, let's do Sarjapur first, let's do Whitefield first, let's do maybe a little bit of Kormangala, Indranagar before we come in.
Is it a little nerve-wracking with the offline? Because, I think online it's on demand, right? Someone orders, you ship it. But whereas, with offline, let's say you send like 100 units of something or 200 units of something, and you just fingers crossed hoping that, it kind of sells and so on, right? That must be like a
I think
anxious experience.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because actually this nerve-wracking element is there for another reason on marketplaces, and I'll tell you about that. So basically, as far as offline retail is concerned, we took a call to not stuff the shelf, right? So we're sending them very little, because there is a very, very good chance of returns. So we said, let's not send them 10,000 pieces, let's send them 1,000 pieces and let it get distributed and we'll see what happens. We also did some merchandising and some promoters, and we sort of, activated those things to sort of help push it further. Demand. Because, it's not like we're a very well-known brand. But this nerve-wracking element is present in a slightly different form as far as quick grocery is concerned. Now, quick grocery conceptually is getting the product quick to the customer at the fastest possible time. But the same logic actually works even in the back end. When they give us a PO, we need to service it to them at the fastest speed possible, right? So unless we get it to them, and we try, and today we're actually at a much better place, right? If we get a PO this morning, it's out this evening from our warehouse. So if we do that, I'm getting more product to their dark stores, and they already have very little space in their dark stores, and which means it gets the visibility that it needs, and therefore the customers see it, it moves. So that cycle, that sort of domino thing keeps happening, right? Now, that's the more nerve-wracking part, because earlier as a D2C brand, I was able to predict my demand. If I increase the budget today, I know that I'm going to get more orders. Therefore, I can keep more stock. Even with Amazon, there is some sense of predictability, right? They also tell you. Now with offline retail, anyway, you've chosen to do a small quantity, so it's in your hands. But with these guys, it's about servicing it to them and servicing it to them quick. So suddenly we went from planning or so-called planning of stock to not really knowing how to plan. So our working capital, which was just about 2 weeks or so earlier, has now become 2 months. I'm having to keep stock so that it goes any minute to any warehouse. And we're actually applying the same logic even to Amazon. With Amazon, we're actually opening up multiple fulfillment centers across India so that the product goes to the customer the soonest from whichever location they're ordering from. Earlier, it used to be just Bangalore. So now it's Bangalore, Hyderabad, Calcutta, Bombay, Gurgaon, and all of that. So if you look at it, it's just coming back to the same good old way, right? Just be where the customer is and be in as many touch points as possible so that you can service them and probably your business grows. And that's essentially what's happening. Yeah, there's a lot of technology that's backing all of this intelligence. Not with us, with all of these guys.
Right.
But the logic still remains the same.
So, before we started recording, we spoke about the whole B2B aspect of things, right? Where, you're going to, let's say, some of these corporates and figuring if there is, some demand in stocking your coffee or serving your coffee in these places and so on. What's that experience like? How's that going? What are the
very new. I don't think we were ready for it last year. In hindsight, I think we should have done everything on day one. But I think it's also a function of you realizing that you have the right price point and the right product for this. So today, I think with coffee, we're able to command that, rather deliver that. Because we are able to source beans at a much better price, and therefore we're able to convert because we're doing much better volumes. So we're trying to see if we can take some of our products to B2B, because we feel like now the time is right from a pricing standpoint. And this is purely a game of pricing, right? It doesn't matter really who the brand is. Maybe it helps that, OVS Money, I've heard of you guys, saw you on Shark Tank, blah, blah, blah. But that's it. That's really just the conversation starter. At the end of it, the deal closes only if you have the right price. So we're actually playing the same level playing field as everybody else. So sometimes you wonder if this brand sexiness was worth it at all. But of course, it's a journey that we're also like trying to figure. And maybe there's a lot of things that we might have to change, where one would normally think B2B means large quantities, rather large pack sizes. But we're actually coming to understand that B2B will mean very small pack sizes. Because we're seeing in a lot of the corporates, the companies give out free snacks to their employees. And they want small packs for those free snacks. So even my 65 gram pack, which we have right now, is not small enough. They'd rather do a 25 gram pack. So we're going to have to understand how this ecosystem is also going to play out. And if some of those things will also make sense. Maybe in the short term, we might just take a few quick calls and say, yes, let's do it. But I think it's going to take us some time to figure which line in that channel is the most profitable.